everyone. It's Sergei from Teacher Sergei's channel, and welcome. So I'm back quicker than I expected. I already had planned that I was going to share talk about some books that I recently finished when I did my video 2 days ago. So this time I did not have to wait a month. Okay, I have 2 books that I read recently that I finished, and I felt like instead of just waiting and putting it off, to go ahead and as quickly as possible do a video about them also. And also I have a tiny book haul that I'm going to do as well. So let's get to it. Okay. All right, so the first book that I want to present, both of the books that I read, I want to point this out, is that I don't have copies, okay? So I'll be, you'll see them in the thumbnail, okay? So the first book is a book that I finished recently, a very grim type book, very stark book. It's called The Red Terror in Russia, and it's by Sergei Melgunov, and I mentioned it in a video maybe a few months ago. So I finally finished it recently, and the book basically is a chronicle of what happened during of things that happened in the Bolshevik Revolution. Sergei Petrovich Melgunov was a historian and a politician, and also an author. He himself was convicted and was sentenced to death. But then they reversed the sentence and he escaped from Russia. So the book basically covers the years from about 1918, 1919 to 1921. Okay. This is during the period they call the Red Terror. And the book is just basically chronicling. He just chronicles all these atrocities and crimes committed by the Bolsheviks. Okay. And along with their secret police called the Cheka. And basically the crimes that he documents happened in Russia. Majority of them happened in Russia, but also in Ukraine. Also, briefly, he mentions some atrocities committed in Georgia. And he said Turkestan. I'm not sure. Maybe the Muslim part or of Russia. I'm not sure, but he mentioned Turkestan. And there's no really an order like he doesn't go like chronologically generally. It just skips around, and he basically just keeps a record. The book is a record basically. He has narrative, you read it has chapters, but it basically is just a record of these different atrocities that happen in different areas to different people, also reports by different people. And you would say, why would you want to read something so grim? Okay. Well, I found out about the book. I'll tell you, I found out first about the book from an X account called Orthodox Canonist. Okay. And Orthodox Canonist also has a YouTube channel called World War Now. And so he put some interesting hidden history on his page. Okay. So I decided that I want to read the book because of what has actually been going on with, I want to draw parallels. I was curious. I didn't know if I would, but I wanted to. I basically read it, see could I draw parallels between atrocities happening during this time and also what is happening what is happening in Gaza and also Palestine. Because, you may not know, but some of the people that are in Israel actually they have backgrounds from Eastern Europe. Okay, so I wanted to see what are similarities between the actions that were done by some of the Bolsheviks compared to what is happening with the Palestinians. So I read the book. And the book was published also, I should mention it was published, I think, 1929. And his style, the way he wrote, makes it bearable. Okay. And there was some interesting tidbits in there. He mentions concentration camps at the time. This was before Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany wasn't around from 1918, 1919 to 1921. Okay. He also, one thing also people usually has an impression is that the Bolsheviks that they actually killed mostly wealthy people. Yes, they did. But they also, he mentions also, they killed from poor people to wealthy people. So it wasn't just one class, the wealthy, not the nobility, the aristocracy. They were killing people from across different classes, middle class, lower class, and aristocrats and wealthy people. Okay, so the book, so his style has a kind of, I don't know, jauntiness about it, even though he's just recording all these atrocities. Okay, it's I don't know, but it was bearable that way. He didn't take a grim tone. He just recorded it, and the tone was not grim. Okay, so that made it bearable. Okay, but there are parallels to things that are going on now. So you have to really wonder. Okay, you have to really wonder. Okay. The second book that I finished reading recently, it was last week, is called A Minor Detail, and it's by Adania Shibli. Now, I had Minor Detail on my Goodreads to read list, but I did not have any immediate plans to read it. So it was just sort of by accident that I decided that I was going to read it recently. It's only about 145, 150 pages. And since I'm reading another book on the Library Libby app, I was looking around on the app, looking around the selection, and I ran across a Minor Detail. And I decided that I wanted to read. So I'm going to read it now because it's not very long. Minor Detail was written by Adania Shibli. She is a Palestinian academic, essayist, and novelist. Okay, this is one of her most famous books, I guess, in translation. She is multilingual. I found that out about her, and I also ran across an interview that she on YouTube that was done about 8 months ago, or was recorded about 8 months ago, and I'm going to post it in the link. I think she's a very interesting looking person. And so, yeah, she was born in Galilee, I believe. And so the novel is basically a novel in two parts. Okay, it's almost like a novella in two parts. The first part of the novel takes place in 1949. There's a minor detail, a small detail of Israeli soldiers that are posted out in the Negev, okay? And a war crime is committed. And I'm not going to give the details of that because I don't want to ruin the story, okay? This crime is against some innocent Bedouins, okay? And that's as far as I'm going to talk about it, okay? Then the book moves to the present day, and it's set in Palestine, Israel. And the narrator in the second part of the novel is an unnamed young woman who says herself that she basically is sort of scatterbrained. She stutters, she says, and she can be rather impulsive, and she's curious, but she's very good-natured. And she runs across this story about this atrocity that was committed in 1949, and she becomes obsessed with it. And she decides she's going to do her own investigation, even though she is not an investigator and she's not really a trained researcher. But she becomes obsessed with this story. And the story, the atrocity committed by these Israeli soldiers happened, I think, it happened on the day she was born. Okay, it happened, I think, like 20 years or 30 years before she was born. Okay, so there are descriptions of, the life, of how life is for a Palestinian person, sort of walled off, she lives basically in the occupied territories, she does. And she mentions Gaza and all that, that she even hears bombing from Gaza at a certain part of the story. So she becomes obsessed with what happened in 1949. And she was saying that it's often the minor details, the little details that give you the most information, that are the most useful. That people often think that the big picture is important, but it's often the minor details, okay? So her part of the story, basically, like I said, she's unnamed, and it's basically, there's no dialogue, it's basically stream of consciousness writing. She basically, it's in her impressions, in her mind, her thoughts. Okay, so there's no dialogue between her and the other characters, pretty much, that are mentioned. She just describes everything. Okay, she sort of describes. She doesn't really write down any dialogue. So yeah, so I enjoyed the book. I gave both Minor Detail and The Red Terror in Russia 4 stars. Okay, I didn't give Red Terror in Russia 5 stars because the topic was so grim. Okay, it wasn't that it was written badly, but I just felt like, no. I just read this book out of curiosity and basically my own sort of research. Okay, and then Minor Detail, I started to give it 5, but then I decided that such a stark novel, and that I decided just to give it also 4 stars. Okay, but both novels, both the history, one is a history, and then Minor Detail is a novel. I'm glad I read both of them. Okay, so yeah, so both books. Okay, I found Melgunov's book very informative. Okay, I think I gave it 4 stars because I didn't give it 5 because it's such a depressing subject. And then I gave hers 4 stars as well. I was tempted to give it 5. I was tempted to give both of them 5 stars. A Minor Detail, I want to mention too about A Minor Detail. Another thing, what was I going to say about it? I forgot what I was going to say about The Minor Detail. Oh, another thing is the second part with the narrator. That's the unnamed narrator. It is basically written in stream of consciousness style. So a lot of it is, there's no dialogue. It's just all of what the impressions and the thoughts of the narrator. Okay, so A Minor Detail is short, but it's in 2 parts. Okay, I'm going to also put a link in the description of an interview that was done maybe about 8 months ago with or basically a talk that Adania Shibli did. Okay, so I recommend both books. Okay, if you want to learn more about what happened with during the Red Terror, with the Bolsheviks. One thing too about Melgunov's novel, I thought he would talk more about what happened to the Russian imperial family, the Romanovs, Tsar Nicholas I and his family, who were all murdered. He did mention them maybe about 1 page, but he didn't talk. It was mostly focused on atrocities against regular people. Okay, the regular people. And he goes into details about it. Okay, so so I recommend both books if you want to know more about the Bolshevik, what happened during that time, during the Red Terror, during the time of with Lenin before Stalin, and if you want to read a Palestinian author, I plan to read more this year. I recommend both The Red Terror in Russia and A Minor Detail. I plan the rest of this year. This is my plan. I'm going to try to stick to it. Okay, try to stick to it because I get so cluttered. My mind gets so cluttered, and I want to read so much, and I don't read as much as I want. And last year was not a good reading year for me. I only read 12 books. Okay, this year I'm going to try to. I think with discipline, I can read more. Okay, I can read more.